YouTube, modeler is Darren here, and I'm back with episode 5 of the Kittyhawk RF-5E Tigereye build review. And this episode is supposed to be about intakes, but nope. So let me touch on the intakes for just a minute. I was blasting through those things and I was getting them ready to install. I was doing some shaving here and some sanding there and fitting, and I burned through one of them. And gotta tell you, I'm not putting any more money into this kit. So it is what it is. I was able to salvage the forward half of those intakes, and what I did is I just blanked them off, painted the insides black at the back, and I gotta tell you, it's a whole heap and a lot better looking inside there that way than it is just open intakes into a plastic cavity with two engine fronts sitting inside there. If you look down here, I will try and show you what I'm talking about. I don't know if you're going to be able to see inside there. I'll throw some light in, but they kind of go off into nothing. And I can tell you, unless you shine a light down in there, you can't tell. And to be honest with you, I'm not opposed to here in the near future making some intake plugs for those. So good friend of mine, Scott Samo, has got the recipe for some really nice intake plugs, and once we get past this whole coronavirus lockdown, he and I are going to get together, and I think that's going to be a remove before flight item that's going to go on the front of this kit and finish that off. So as you can see, I've got this thing about 80% complete. I've been doing a lot of work off camera. It's been a lot of monotonous body work, sanding, spot priming, sanding, filling seams, rescribing lines, redoing rivets, things that would just bore you to tears. It's like watching paint dry. I've done some of that too. But that said, let me talk just a little bit about gaps on this thing. So looking down here, and some of this might be kind of hard to see because I've got the black Mr. Surfacer on there, which in my opinion is one of the best primers out there when it comes to trying to see ghost seams or imperfections in the surface. This thing had some issues with gaps. Gaps mainly around, let me get my pointer here, around the wing butts here. There were some bad gaps around the tail. The gaps were pretty bad. One of the ones that took the most work was right along here. So this is where the fuselage actually mated up, and of course where the intakes mated to the rear fuselage. And there is no seam or panel line where that joint mates up. So a lot of filling and a lot of sanding there to get that gone, and then re-riveting of the actual rivet line up here. Now I do have just a slight ghost seam left inside here, and I'm hoping that as I sand this back, because I still got to give this another probably 1,000 grit sand, knock it down just a little bit, and then I give it its final primer coat. I'm hoping that that's going to disappear. There was a pretty pronounced ghost seam across this nose. That took a lot of work. And one thing about this Kittyhawk kit is the surface detail, which is good. I mean, there's a lot of really great surface detail, but it's very shallow. So as you sand and fill with primer, you start to wash that out. So what I found is, if I go through and I rescribe prior to and redo my rivets prior to, make them a little bit deeper, I don't lose that detail as fast. And also, as I'm working, I'm constantly reworking seams and rivets, and it just helps me stay ahead of the game. So that's one little piece of advice I have. It works for me. It may work for you. Back to the nose. We got all the camera system, of course, is in here now. this is all sanded in. The belly's all done. All the seams are taken care of. Do have a little bit of flurm down in here, a little off. I got to fix this down here, but I'll get that before I do my final coat. Let me see if I get the light in there where you can see it's just down inside here, right in here, and right in here you can see where that's that seam line where the front fuselage and the intakes meet up with the aft fuselage. So that needs a little bit more work, but no big deal. I'll knock that out here pretty quickly. I've gone through and pre-painted all my leading edges where my what do you call it, leading edge flaps go. You can see that's, oops, wrong side. That's all gonna made up in there, so I've got that pre-painted inside so I can attach those and not have to worry about, you know, the dark down in there. It's still going to show a nice little pre-shade because it's just lightly done, but I had to get some color in there. Speaking of leading edge flaps, let's talk a little bit about the trailing edge flaps and the ailerons. So the trailing edge flaps were not too bad. You can look down here. I can actually stick this one on here and it'll hang in there pretty tight. So that one hangs in there pretty good. But these ailerons, oh boy, the ailerons. So this is the port side aileron right here. Right there. So this aileron, you see the little nubs that stick out there. Those are hinge points. And on this one, we have the same hinge points. Now the problem is when this thing is molded, let's see if we can get to where you can see through that. When this thing is molded, it was cast, and those were half full. So I had to go through and sand in between each one of those and cut that out to get that to where it's going to fit in there properly. And I finally got it there. It took quite a bit of work and quite a bit of time. I bet you I've got probably a week and a half of a couple hours a night down here doing body work and sanding on this thing. Now, I'm a little anal retentive when it comes to body work. I don't want seams to show. It never fails. I always have one that's going to pop on me and I have to go back and fix. But it's just something I like to try and do, is try and get it as close as I can for paint. So I've spent a lot of time down here. And if you decide you want to buy off on this kit, then stand by, because body work is where it's at. You're going to get good at it, I promise you. Practice makes perfect. Lots of practice with this one. So another thing about the belly of this airplane, not only is it the seam there that the join mark for the cockpit, or the forward fuselage and the rear fuselage, but there's also this landing gear door. Now, I'm going to try and show you this best I can, but come on down here to the bench for just a second. Let me show you. So the nose of this airplane, of course, has that camera pod in there. So it's got that weird shape, and you have a weird triangle right here coming up to the landing gear door. You see that? So the landing gear door 2, which I have here, is got that triangle piece that fits on front, right? But when you flip it around, here is your mounting point for the rear, mounting point for the front. Well, look what sticks down further than the mounting point in the front. The piece of that triangle. And no matter how you try and do it, let's see if I can turn this where I can show you all. But no matter how you do this, it does not fit in there. And that's because that triangle up front tries to hit before your mounting point. So I've got to figure that out. I don't know what the engineers at Kittyhawk were thinking on that one, but you did us well. You did us well on it for sure. Another issue is the wheels. I am not a fan of 2-part wheels. Now, one thing I will say they got going for them is they put the flat mark in there. and the detailing looks fairly nice. Okay, I am going to, well, I would say I would drill those out, but I'm not, because they don't go all the way through the little circles. Another thing we're missing, you got the seam line down the middle, and even if you did have a tire tread of some sort, it would be wiped out from your sanding, but this one doesn't. So that's something else I got to go through, and I've got to cut into these wheels and get some detailing in there. So 2 underside issues that just I can't let go untouched. Horizontal stabs right here, they're one piece. Should be fairly simple, right? The problem is your seam line for your attaching point blows right through the middle of this. And when you go to put these on, they are way, way too small. So, got to figure that out. Okay, those obviously those are going to be glued in spot, and they're going to be, they're not going to be posable. But my goodness gracious, I mean, they barely, I mean, they won't stay in there, they'll fall out. So, issue with the horizontal stabs. I also have issue with the vertical stab. Now, it's hard to see. I don't know if I can get the, well, you can't see. Now, this is what's funny looking. You see there's a little ghost in here, but there's nothing there. The seam for this is actually on the other side, right at the same area. And I've got most of that one out, but there's something in the plastic on the other side. And I can't understand why you would two-piece this vertical at that point and have half a seam down the leading edge and half a seam across here with the seam in the very back. You can see where it was 2 pieces right along inside the gap here. So that was a lot of work, and that detailing in there, the rivets, which I've put back in. Let's see if I can get the light in there for you. I've put all the detailing back in, but it was so shallow, it just washes right out when you start sanding it. It doesn't take much, and it's gone. Same with the panel lines. So back to that body work that I was talking about. You know, there's some little areas up here on the leading edge extensions you can see in here. This is something with the plastic, and I've sanded and sanded, but it's like it's just a little sunken area. Here again, without blowing out all the detail, it is what it is. Now, I'm hoping that once I get some paint on here and I start detailing and weathering and stuff, a lot of that is going to fade away. The last issue that I want to talk about in this episode, and it's one that I've been fighting now for a couple days, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I've got it nailed now, I believe. And that was the suitcase latches on the gun doors up front. So, as you know, and you show here in the instructions, right here, let me put this down here for you. These doors are meant to be posed open, not closed. And therefore, your suitcase latches are shown in the up unlatched position, open. So at the very least, these little tabs have to be cut off, and this has to be sprue glued closed or something to that nature, and then rescribed. Well, they're so small that trying to rescribe that is, I don't want to say impossible. I'm sure there's folks out there with skills that can do that, but this cat doesn't have that skill, so it just turned into a total mess. So, what do you do? For me, it was turn to one of my favorite companies because they do a lot of cool stuff, and that is Archer Fine Transfers. And Archer's Fine Transfers, they actually do a lot of stuff for the model railroading community when it comes to rivets and things of that nature for box cars. And it is actual resin on decal paper on transfer. So I happen to have right here some of their rivet material, or not rivet material, their resin lines on decal backing. And you can see I've already got a bunch of this stuff cut out. And I was able to take that and redo my suitcase latches on the nose of this airplane right here. Now they are raised, but it's, in my opinion, better to have raised detail than no detail. You can see on this side I've got this sanded flat. It's all smooth. There's one dimple right here that I've got to fix. Not a big deal. I'll sand that down. And then I'll measure this out and I'll put my rivet detail on this, or my latch detail on this side. Another cool thing about Archer is these. These are panel accesses and fuel doors and things of that nature. Here again, resin set on, and I got some detail, some hinge, piano hinge down here. But these are resin cast on, or detail on decal paper. And these right here will be used on our kit, and here's why. Check out this picture. Here again, the jet that I'm modeling this after. This is what has inspired me to do the Singapore Air Force. And then look at the kit. Let me, actually, you know what's funny? It does not. All of their illustrations, and here is the Singapore Air Force one, and look where it shows your fuel doors, your fuel caps. They're molded on the wrong side of the airplane. So I have filled them, and now with the help of these Archer transfers, I'm going to be able to put that detail back in again. And we'll get those in the right spot. So, Archer to the rescue. Gotta love them. So that's about it for this episode. I apologize, not much building in this one. I mainly want to get everybody caught up to where we were. When it comes to content and doing the building, I'm going to leave the last 3, maybe 4, I think 3 episodes up to you guys. So as we look forward, we know that we got to do the painting. Here's the picture. This is where I want this jet to be. So there's going to be a lot of weathering. There's going to be some oils. There's going to be a lot of pre-shading. There's going to be some modeling. There's going to be different colors and some techniques around some of the latches and panels to make those look weathered. There's going to be some chipping around the windscreen area. Things of that nature. Make it look worn. Some oily stains on the bottom. We're going to take care of the tires. Things, little detail things. So, with that in mind, I need y'all to go down to the comments and let me know what it is y'all would like to see demonstrated in the next episodes. And I'll plan those out and make that happen for you. So the build review is about 80% done. It was the build. So now let's look at some of the fun stuff. The finishing work, the painting and all that, that's to me the best part. So let's do that together. That said, also please go down, make sure that y'all hit the subscribe button, and when you do, go ahead and click the bell so you're notified whenever those new episodes are put out. I'm going to try and keep all these episodes under 15 minutes, and it will go pretty quick. So I look forward to your comments. Please go down, let me know what you think, and until next time, y'all stay safe and stay well, and I hope to see y'all again real soon. Good night.